Hey guys, this is Locke, and this is my review on Jayden. The idea of a magic gunner seems really interesting, but once you break down the mechanics, you'll realize that there isn't really too much difference between a magic gunner and a physical gunner. So I'll explain the mechanics first of all. So if you look at any of his skills, let's take this one, you can see that the symbol here is for magic. So basically any of his attacks will do missile magic-based attacks. So what this means is you have to actually take a look at statistics to understand this. So there is an attack and a magic statistic. So his damage will depend on the magic statistic, which says Mage, whereas somebody like Federica will depend on the attack statistic. So that's really the only difference. Resistance-wise, they will both do the missile type of damage. Now, the reason why I said that, there isn't much difference when you break down the mechanics is because since attack and magic is the only difference, the mitigating factor here will really be an opponent's spirit or defense. And you can see that down here where it says defense and spirit. So if I'm Federica and I'm doing, missile attack-based damage, your defense is going to reduce it. If I'm Jayden and I'm doing magic-based missile damage, then your spirit decreases it. So again, the reason I'm saying that it doesn't, mechanic-wise, it doesn't matter much is because previously people used to build a lot of defense, but now we don't see that so much anymore. And the reason we don't is because there is so much defense penetration. Federica has one skill, but it's not so easy to get the defense penetration off. But other snipers, like for example, Nivlu or who else? Well, any sniper really. All of them have this skill called Target, which increases your defense penetration by like 40%. So really, like, you don't really see too many people building like 100 defense or anything, or even like 80 defense. Usually they go for like a mid tier number, like, like 20 to 40. Usually get 20 from an armor piece, and then maybe you have like some other skill that gives you an additional 20 or something, right? But usually people don't really build defense so much, and whatever defense you do build is usually countered by a high amount of defense penetration. So to illustrate, if an opponent has 0 defense and an opponent has 0 spirit, if you're Federica or if you're Jayden, both of them, assuming you have the same amount of magic and attack on each of them, both of them will do the exact same amount of damage. Because so that's the difference. First of all, the defense versus spirit and attack versus magic. But if defense and spirit are irrelevant, then the type of damage that you do, whether it's magic or attack, also kind of becomes irrelevant. I mean, sure, sometimes you will meet units like, for example, 9S, which typically does build more, tanky kind of builds, and he has a lot of defense. He has innate defense, and then he has protect in his kit. So in certain instances, yeah, doing magic damage will get bypass that and will do significantly more damage than Federica's attack. But in most cases, most of the time, people don't typically build so much defense. And whatever defense they do build is countered by defense penetration. Even like Federica has a defense penetration skill now, and all the other snipers do. And similarly, Jayden also has a spirit penetration skill as well. So if they do decide to build spirit, he can penetrate up to 40% of that spirit with one of his passives. This one, Ruler's Refinement, which increases his spirit penetration by 40. So that's the idea of a magic gunner. Now, the reason I really like Jayden actually is because of his subjob, which is Red Mage. So usually you have all these tanks, like physical tanks, or like King Mont, Engelbert, and so on, and they can all resist damage very well. Well, they can resist most physical type of damage really well. So let me look at, for example, King Mont, right? So his damage is going to be, assuming he has 0 defense and 0 spirit, because you just didn't decide to build anything, right? So if he's up against Jayden and Federica, he has a skill called Double Resist, which will increase his missile penetration. Not missile penetration, it will increase his missile resistance by 25. Let me just find the skill to talk about it. Where is it now? here, double resist. So increases pierce and missile resistance of him and his allies by 25. So he will have 40% missile resistance, right? And so both Frederica and Jayden will do the same amount of damage. They will do 60% of their damage, assuming King Mont has 0 defense and 0 spirit. So they will do 40% of the damage because he has 40% missile resistance. And so, in Frederica's case, when King Mont gets close to her, she's usually dead because she probably would not have enough damage to kill him before he can come and berserk her or something like that, right? Like, she usually, as soon as King Mont gets close to her, she's dead. Like, I've played King Mont many times and I've faced a lot of Frederica, especially in CM and manual play. And as soon as I can get to them and do one attack, they're usually dead. Or I can, like, berserk them and, unless they reflex and I get lucky with reflex, usually they're dead. So with Jayden, now that's not the case. Sure, Jayden also doesn't have so much defenses. Like, he has a little bit more HP than Frederica, but he has a secondary form of damage, which is the magic type damage, and he has huge modifiers on this magic type damage. So let me look at this one. Like Jamming Thrust, this is an L type damage. It has a 200% modifier, which is the same as most LBs. Most LBs do 200% of damage. And this is a range 5 skill, height range 2. So if King Mont is approaching Jayden, he will use his long range skills, and I can get into them for after, but let's just talk about it very quickly. So this is a range 6 skill when you upgrade it with his EX, and he has +2 range here and +1 range from his sniper stance. So that'll be a range of 9. So King Mont has 3 or 4 movement. Let's just say it's 3 movement for the sake of simplicity, for the illustration anyway. So it's 3 movement. So Jayden uses an attack, whatever attack he wants. Maybe he uses this one because it has a range of 9. So he uses the skill. King Mont comes forward 3 steps. He has his highest skill is 6 range. Sorry, his highest skill is 5 range, so he can only effectively move 8 ranges. He can only effectively damage a unit within 8 ranges. So King Mont comes closer. Now Jayden switches to using Jamming Thrust, and now this skill is going to do a ton of damage to King Mont, because King Mont might have 40% missile resistance, but he has 0% magic resistance, and that is what is going to be very damaging for him. That's the reason why Black Rose Helena and other units do so much damage to these tanks, because they have 0 of this thing, 0 magic resistance. I mean, sure, they can build magic resistance, but most of the time, they don't have so much magic resistance. They usually go for slash resistance or defense or something like that. So this is the reason why, in my opinion, Jayden's going to be so terrifying to deal with, not because of his missile damage. His missile damage is only for making them come close so he can keep his distance. Because if he didn't have this missile damage, right? If he only had, say, Red Mage sub and say he was Red Mage main and he had some other Subjob like Kotodoma or something, he's gonna suck. The reason is because he will have to go close to attack King Mont. Like, he will have to be within 5 spaces to attack him. If he doesn't one-shot him, he's probably dead. But with his with his main job skills that have ranges of 8 and 9, if you set him up properly, he will keep his distance. He will stay back and he will make the enemies come to him, and as soon as they do, that's when he gets dangerous by using Jamming Thrust. So in my opinion, that is the real secret of Jayden. It's not his magic-based missile damage, but it's having access to very good missile damage. Like, it's not going to be like terrible. It's still going to hit King Mont. It's just not. I just don't expect him to one-shot King Mont with his missile damage. He might one-shot squishy units like Frederica and things like that, but he probably won't be one-shotting tanky units or even bruisers. But when those units come closer to him and they start, they're within range to attack him, then he switches over to using Jamming Thrust, and that is the real killer, in my opinion. So that's in my opinion, how Jayden's supposed to work. And now that I've explained it, let's just go into some of his skills to talk about him. Usually these gunner type units have a skill that increases range by 1, and Jayden is no exception. He has a skill that not only increases his range, but increases his missile resistance by 25% for 3 turns. He actually gets quite a bit of missile resistance with his mastery and his natural innate missile resistance, so it goes up to 30. It's already 30%. It'll go up to 55. And you can put another card that gives you additional 20% missile resistance to make it, 75 missile resistance. And if you want to make it to 100, you can put the defense bracer as well. For at least 3 turns, he will have 100% missile resistance. So is that better than the missile attack? Well, yes and no. I mean, for Frederica, like I've been saying before, gunners typically don't have as much damage as other units because they have so much range. So you really want to stack as much missile attack as you can on them. In Jayden's case, that's not necessarily true, because sure, it will increase his missile damage, but I just told you his killer skill is actually jamming thrust. And so plus 38 missile attack isn't really going to help as much. But instead, he has a better skill. He has this skill called March of the Stag, which increases his magic for 3 turns by 60%. So this magic increase is going to affect his missile skill and his magic skills like jamming thrust. So if he uses this skill plus, this skill, the combination of that, in my opinion, is going to be better than the aimed fire buff that Frederica and other gunners have. So he has this skill, Unerring Shot. It's the only guaranteed hit skill that he has, but his dexterity is quite high. Most gunners have high dexterity, and again, Jayden is no exception. So this is a basic skill, and it's very cheap. It's AP cost of 15. This goes down to 12 because of his mastery that lowers AP consumption. And it has quite a high range as well, as range 5. It's only height range 1, but this range also goes up to 8 if you set him up properly with the correct passive and use the sniper stance beforehand. Then he has Drill Shot, which increases his own missile resist penetration for 3 turns and then deals damage. And this is probably his hardest hitting missile skill. After that, he has this one, which is the longest range on him, and it is an AoE skill as well. In addition to being long range, because it has a range of 6 once you upgrade it with this EX upgrade, it also has a height range of 4. Most of the other skills actually have quite low height range. Like this one has a height range of 1. This one has a height range of 1 as well. And these skills, these are actually typical gunner skills where you need line of sight. That is not the case with this one, which is an AoE skill. This one you don't need line of sight, so you can actually hit quite well with the skill. Also, his job level 25 skill is similar in that it is also a range height 4 skill as well. Now, I already talked about his other main buff. It also increases agility of himself and his allies by 20%. He has very high agility. His base, not really his base, but if you look on the War of the Visions calculator, which includes his his board stats and everything, I think it's 66 agility. Actually, let me take a look. Let me take a second look at it. It's 66 agility, and then he's also able to increase his agility by 12% with Ruler's Refinement, and then an additional 20% with this skill. So he will have very high agility. Stack haste on top of it, and it's very easy to see him double turning other units that don't have this kind of setup, right? So he's fast. He has a long range, and once opponents approach him, he will still do terrifying damage. And he has, it's very hard to mitigate his damage, because first of all, he does 2 types of damage. He does missile damage and magic damage. The second thing is that he also has this one, which increases his own missile resist penetration anyway. So even if they built very high missile resistance, he will still be able to penetrate some of it. The only thing that will slow him down is Spirit, because Spirit will stop both his missile attack and his magic attack. However, fortunately, he does have 40% Spirit penetration as well. So he will never do 0 damage. He will at least do 40% of his damage if an enemy has 100% Spirit. His Limit Burst is able to break barriers, and it has a range of 4 and height range of 2. And it's a triple hit skill as well, so you can use this, and then if you have another unit that follows up with one hit, that unit will do a ton of damage because he already built up a lot of chains with it. So that's in a nutshell what Jayden is, and I've already talked about why he's good, the concept of Jayden. I think that's really a lot more important than actually talking about his skills, because you can kind of read the skills by yourself anyway. I mean, I might give you a little bit more insight, but really to understand Jayden is to understand how he works, in that he is not only able to cover long range, but he's also able to cover units that come to him, and he will actually do terrifying damage. Like, once you approach Jayden doesn't mean you won, because Jayden might actually one-shot you if you approach him. So that is, in my opinion, again, the secret of Jayden. Now, talking about vision cards, is this vision card good? I mean, it's not a bad vision card, but it's not one that I see myself putting on him often. So if I take a look at the stats of it, it increases. Well, okay, so area resistance is really nice. That is actually a reason why I would pull this card. But since it's limited to light units, I can only use it on light teams. Whereas I already have another card. I have the Holiday Party, which has area resistance for all elements, right? So this one I can only use with light units, and that one I can use all the time. So it's not a reason I would pull for this card, because I already have another card that does it, unless this card can give me a significant advantage that card can't, even if it's for light teams. And I don't really see that advantage myself. So let me go into it. So it increases missile attack up by 18. So this is good for Jayden, and it's good for Fina, and that's it. Like, I can't use it with anyone else. And I already told you, Jayden, the secret is his jamming thrust skill, in my opinion, right? So if that's the reason why he's so good, then this missile attack up by 18 isn't really going to help with that. So, it's not a card that I would use often. And if I'm using like a missile team with like Jayden and Frederica, again, this card is not going to do anything for Frederica, right? So I don't really see the card being that good. Area resist, of course, is great. And if you're only running light teams and you're running him and Fina, sure. I mean, it's okay. It's not a bad card. But it's if you only have 3 choices most of the time, and you're not running both Jayden and Fina, there's usually a better card to put than this card, in my opinion. Dexterity is nice. I prefer luck than dexterity. Because for luck I can use with both evasion and accuracy, whereas with dexterity I use for critical and accuracy. And I don't really count on critical hits too often. So I would rather just have luck. And I already have a luck card with Elena, and it's again for light teams. So do I need both cards? I don't think so. So that's the reason why I'm not. Again, this is also not a limited card as well, and it's not a bad card. So at some point I might have this maxed out, but I don't need to pull on it now, and I don't need to like max it now either. I'll probably, whenever I pull it, I'll probably work on it slowly. Maybe if I happen to need it for whatever, I'll probably have enough Mog medals and other stuff to max it at that point. But I don't need to worry about pulling it right now. That's not what I'm really thinking. This effect is very good for Jayden and for other light units, because it's light attack up 15. It'll affect every single light unit basically. So that's pretty good. And this one, I actually quite really like this one for Jayden, the acquired AP of 30%. If you look at the item from the raid, this is gonna stack. So it'll be acquired AP up of 60%. That's actually one of the weaknesses of Jayden. I forgot to mention, but I'll come back to it after I finish with the vision card. But this is basically, if you stack them up, it's any AP gain that he gets is increased by 60%. So I think that's really, really good, because AP is one of his weaknesses. And then it increases his HP by a little bit as well. Overall, it's okay, but it's not fantastic. So that's the reason why I'm not pulling. Now I'm going to go into his weakness. So most mages, right, red mages or black mages, like if you look at a black mage like Mediana, she starts with 75% of her AP when she gets into a fight. Red mages like Miranda starts with 50% of her AP. And this is also true for units like Elena, like Starlight Elena. She also starts with 50% of her AP. So they could still use bells and things like raids and other like prolonged fights, but most of the time 50% AP is okay, especially if they get a chance to use 1 or 2 buffs. They don't need Kiza's TMR to keep doing damage. That is not the case with Jayden, unfortunately. Although he does magic damage, he actually has the starting AP of other like non-magic users. So he starts with I think like 15% AP. So as you can see, that's quite low, and to use his skills he does need a bit of AP. Now the game has given you some things to kind of make his AP cost easier to manage. One of these things is his mastery skill. So his mastery skill decreases his AP consumption by 20%. And then the equipment that he came with, well, it didn't really come with, but the equipment that you can get from the raid right now, this is going to increase acquired AP up by 30%. And so if you stack this with the card that I just told you, that's up to 60% AP increase. So with the 60% AP increase and a decreased cost of all AP skills by 20%, that might make it kind of okay to still be able to get by without using bells. But it really depends on the scenario, like how many times he gets to buff. If he doesn't get a chance to buff at all, then he'll probably run into AP issues. So then you might actually need to force him to use bells somehow, right? Otherwise, he might be able to get by with using his skill, which actually gives him quite a bit of AP. The skill I'm referring to is this one, which is 36 TP, which is 18 AP, and you increase that by between 30 and 60% depending on if you have his card or not, and if you have his what's it called, his equipment. His card and the equipment that I just talked about or not. So yeah, it really depends. I mean, I most of the time I would still expect that you kind of need bells, especially in arena and guild wars and things like that. But they do try to manage it somehow, so you don't need it. I really just wish that they just gave him like 50% AP like other red mages. But that's what they did, so we have to go with that. So I talked about his card and I said why that I wouldn't really prefer that card. So what cards would I use? There are a couple. The first one that comes to mind is Bahamut. Because this increases magic by 50%. So this magic is going to affect both his missile type skills and his magic attack type skills. So jamming thrust and all his main job skills will be affected by the 50% of magic up. And then he also gets 8% agility, which is nice. He gets flat 4 agility, again great. It's already stacking onto his high agility base. And then this limited bestowed effect, usually these cards come with limited bestowed effects for the unit themselves, but this limited effect is for all light units. So it's going to increase his magic attack up by 15. This is only for jamming thrust, however, but it's still like, even if you ignore the limited bestowed effect, everything else on this card is already very, very good. Like the 4 agility, 168 magic, 50% magic, 8% agility, 20% Odin's effects, single target resistance. All of that already is really, really good, and I think that's better than the stuff on his own card. So I would most of the time probably be using Bahamut instead anyway if I had both. Yeah, and jamming thrust increases from 200 to 225 mod, but that's like a side bonus really, I guess. But probably one of the best cards on him is one that I don't have maxed, which is this one, because that increases all light attack by 35. So you don't even have to have it on him, but if you have this card on somebody else in the party, this will increase his modifiers for both his magic attack, like jamming thrust, and his missile attacks. So this is probably one of the best cards to have in his party because he has 2 different types of attacks, and this will increase the damage of both. Now, similarly, you kind of want an Esper that would do similar things as well. So you would want an Esper like Bahamut that has Man Killer, which would again affect both his missile type damage and his magic type damage, or you would want you would want an Esper like Carbuncle, which would give you light attack. So again, light attack, which would affect both types of damage as well. So you would want to look for probably one of these two Espers. You would want to put one of these 2 Espers on him, in my opinion. And for the vision cards, I think those are one of the 2 best cards that you can put on him, either Bahamut or Scion of House. How do you call it? I keep forgetting the name. This one, Scion of Shadows. That's the one. Yeah, if you have it maxed. I mean, even at 21, it's not too bad. But if you have it maxed at 35, and then it also gives you dark resistance, that's like the cherry on top of the cake. But 21 isn't bad either. I might still be using it sometimes. I think those are the 2 best ones. And then if you have another unit like Yuna on the team or something, you might think of using Trousseau. Now again, this is going to affect his jamming thrust only. It will not affect the attack of his missile skills. So the card also depends on who else is in your team. You might even put Trousseau on him if you have Yuna or some other unit. Like if you have like a water magician, a water magic based unit, then Trousseau's magic attack up is going to affect that unit. If you have him and Frederica can have Frederica's Dream, which would affect Jayden's own missile attack by 35 up, right? So it really all depends on the party composition as well. The 2 cards that I told you, I think, are one of the 2 best cards for him, in a nutshell, only looking at him by himself. But I think card compositions really should come with the team compositions. Whatever your team is going, the cards should really benefit all 3, right? And so that's the reason why I keep finding that Jayden's card itself is very hard, because although I might use light units, right? Like I might put Jayden and Starlight Elena and say Yuna on the same team. Jayden's card, sure, it will give 20% AoE resistance to all three and 35% dexterity to all three, but typically they don't really need that. They want more offense, right? Sure, I guess it's not bad to have 20% AoE resistance for all light units, but is it really necessary to go for that instead of using this card, which already gives you 15% area resist for light units? I don't know, right? You have to make the call. Like, is it worth it to immediately get that card? It's not a bad card, like you keep saying. It's just not a card that I need to get right now. That's how I look at it. So anyway, that's it for me talking about Jayden. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you have other questions or comments, please leave them below, and I will try my best to address it. Anyway, thank you for watching, guys, and I hope to see you guys next time. Take care now.